Today, we really want to explore how to work with the mind from moment to moment in our everyday lives, because that's really the fruit of the practice, is that we can step out of unhelpful thought patterns, habitual reactions, and work with the contents of what's there. So I'm going to share 3 ways of working with the mind that I find really helpful from day to day, moment to moment. And then I'll guide a 20-minute practice that incorporates all 3. And I've labeled these ways of working with the mind: noticing, relating, and cultivating. And so really it's noticing with curiosity, relating with kindness, and cultivating what is wholesome or supportive. And so I'll walk us through each of these 3. And noticing is really just about stopping in the flow of life to notice what is happening, to bring that curiosity to what is happening in the environment around me. What am I actually seeing? What am I smelling? What am I hearing? What's happening in this body? What's happening in this heart? What feelings are present? And including the mind as well. What thoughts are here? So a helpful analogy or image for me is, if you think about a rushing river, most of the time we are in the river. We're being pushed along by these conditioned thoughts and habits and beliefs. And pausing to notice is just stepping onto the riverbank, looking down at the river and being like, whoa, wow, look at all that. And so it's really with this sort of innocent curiosity. Look at this human experience. Look at what's happening without judgment. And so the great thing about noticing is you can do it anytime you remember. It's literally just remembering. That's the challenge, is while you're cooking or engaging with someone, just that very subtle dropping back into awareness and noticing. And it can be really helpful to label or to name what you're noticing. Simply, oh, I'm noticing the sun. I'm noticing a gripping in my belly or a warmth in my belly. Oh, I'm noticing anger. Oh, I'm noticing an inclining towards. And what happens when we name is we actually call upon the prefrontal cortex. So if we were to put you in a brain scanner, we would see mostly activity in the emotional centers of the brain, where we're really identified, we're in the experience. And as soon as we name it, we call upon these higher brain centers where there's that space, like we are witnessing. Another analogy that I like for noticing is sort of like we're watching television and we're in this virtual reality, this sliver of how we see life and how we experience life. We just hit pause for a second. We're like, wait, what's around me? How am I feeling? Do I even like this show? Do I want to keep playing this show? So that's noticing. The second practice that is helpful in daily life is what I call relating, which is really the question of, how am I relating to what's here, to what's arising in the body, in the heart, in the mind, in the environment around me? And a profound shift for me in my own journey of healing and of working with anxiety was the recognition that I can't stop what's arising in my inner experience. I am a part of nature, just like that river is a part of nature, just like weather systems move through the sky. That thoughts and feelings, these very natural human energies of, lust or jealousy or anger or excitement or love, they're just happening. And while we can't change what's arising, just like we can't stop the river from flowing, we can change our relationship to what's arising. And that's really where freedom lives. And I think a helpful analogy to kind of carry forth the image of watching TV in your house with this one is, you're watching TV and you hit the pause button to notice what's there. It's kind of an uncomfortable feeling, or it's a difficult feeling, or it's a really intense overwhelming feeling. And let's say that that feeling is sort of like a visitor outside your house knocking on the door. And we can relate to that visitor in any number of ways. You know, we could be like, ooh, I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to turn on the TV and I'm going to turn it up. I'm going to get snacks, you know? And it's sort of this representation of the ways that we can distract or numb ourselves from being with what's arising, especially if it's difficult. Or we could do what I did for many, many, many years, and is still the pattern I will fall into if I'm really not practicing, is I don't want that visitor to come in. I'm going to ignore you, and I'm going to go get really productive. I'm going to jump on the elliptical and go as fast as I can, and I'm going to jump on the next self-improvement project, and I'm going to overwork and obsess, and I'm not going to pay attention to you. Another approach that's very common in how we're relating to what's arising is the visitor's there and we go to the door, we look out the peephole, and we get in a fight with the visitor. We're like, you are not coming in here, no way. And what this represents is sort of the way we try and gain control over what feels difficult or too intense by going into blaming, either blaming the other person, you know, if you weren't this way, this wouldn't be happening, or blaming ourselves. If I were just more X, Y, or Z, this wouldn't be happening. Or blaming life itself. If only this situation in the past had worked out differently. So what relating with kindness is really about is just that question of, how am I responding to what's arising? Am I gripping in my body? And the body's the best place to check how we're relating. Is there tension? Or is there an openness and ease? And I find it really helpful to recognize how, even just in noticing, how am I relating, asking that question, if it's something that's not super emotionally charged. And I'll use the example of yesterday, or not yesterday, 2 days ago, I went for a walk. And so I'm out for a walk. I don't have my 2-year-old with me. It's my hour to be with myself. And I get stuck behind a garbage truck that is stopping. He's going like almost the exact same speed as I am and stopping at each house and loading the garbage. And then this sort of like goo comes down the side onto the sidewalk and it smells. And I went into this really reactive tightening in my body, just thinking mean thoughts about this garbage man who is ruining my walk. And this is my only time to get out in nature. And so I noticed it, like, okay, that's what's here. And just in the noticing, like, wow, I am resisting, I'm fighting this. There was a real softening and a recognition of, okay, I can fight it, or I can just relax with what is, I can breathe out. And I can notice that, well, to my right is a beautiful lake. And I've got a body that can move right now. So very often, if it's not super emotionally charged, just the noticing and the recognition of, oh, wow, I'm relating with tension or resistance can shift. When it's something that's much more emotionally charged, especially if it's tapping into a negative core belief or a trauma from the past, we really have to activate the soothing part of our nervous system to be able to gather the courage to go to that door and open the door and say, hey, visitor, welcome. Come in, would you like some tea? And to bring that curiosity, you know, who are you? And you belong to the human experience, whatever this is. And it's in this turning towards with curiosity and with kindness where we're then free, right? We're not locked in our house anymore. We could hold hands with the visitor and go to the park. We could hold hands with the visitor and essentially be with this visitor as we move through our lives in a meaningful way. And so the example from my own life was working with anxiety, really intense anxiety that gradually built over my early life to college, where sitting down to write a paper, I started to have panic attacks. And what was underneath that, and what I didn't know at the time was underneath that, was this really deep belief that I have to prove my worth to be of value, to be loved. And so it really was this sort of like a life-threatening situation that was going on in my nervous system every time I sat down to write a paper. And if I tried to make that anxiety go away, it got worse. It was in learning how to relate to it, to name like, okay, this is anxiety. Feels like energy rising in my chest, feels like I want to run. And I needed more than just the noticing. I really needed that relationship of kindness, of compassion, of being able to put my hands on my body and say, this is really difficult. And remind myself of what really matters. And offer that deep sense of care in the way I would respond to a good friend. Not to make the anxiety go away, but simply because it was there. And it was in that practice again and again and again and again that I cultivated a new relationship with the belief that was underneath the anxiety and the energy of anxiety itself. And it still pops up to this day. Every time I prepare for any presentation, including this one, there's going to be that little voice that's like, it needs to be perfect. Have you done enough? And sometimes it's louder and sometimes it's quieter, but it's really in cultivating this relationship of kindness, of interest, of compassion. And I'll read a poem that really describes this second practice of relating with kindness by Rumi. It's called The Guest House. And he writes, "This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door, laughing, and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." So that shift from trying to control or manage the difficult, the jealousy, the anger, the lust, the fear, the anxiety when it arises, to actually, I just need to respond to it with kindness, welcome it in, have some tea. So we'll explore that in a bit more embodied way during the meditation. And then the third way of working with the mind in daily life is cultivating what's wholesome. And we talked a lot about this in our last session when we talked about positive neuroplasticity. And really cultivating what's wholesome is just inclining the mind and heart towards what is nourishing, what is supportive. And it's not this chasing after positive experiences to get rid of negative experiences. It's not that at all. It's really a wise recognition that by turning towards what nourishes, what supports, we're better equipped to respond to the difficult when it arises. So what I mean by turning towards what's nourishing can be as simple as just calling to mind a person or a support or a structure or a philosophy that supports you. And just kind of turning the mind towards it and marinating it, really allowing yourself to feel in the body that support, or what that philosophy means to you, or what that prayer means to you. Another way of cultivating what's wholesome is just touching that sincere intention that really brings all of us to practice, which is to care for this life we've been given, or to care for others. And for me, loving kindness phrases are really, really helpful. They're like my go-to safe refuge of just turning towards, may I be happy? What does that feel like in my body? That unconditional happiness for no reason. May I be healthy? May I be strong. May I be peaceful. May I rest in love. And really letting the phrases sift down, and sensing what that is, what that means to me. Another way of, cultivating what's wholesome is gratitude. Just that expanding the view to recognize the ways that we're really deeply blessed, and to feel that sort of web of benevolence around us, and that we belong to that web. And then another way is calling to mind our values. If what we value is acceptance or wisdom or compassion, just turning towards that, calling it to mind, and sensing it in your bodily experience, what that means for you when that is alive in you. So all three of those practices can be done independently, just that pause of noticing, or that pause of how am I relating to what's happening right now? Checking in with the body. Am I kind of in an aversive state? Am I inclining towards? Could I relate with more spaciousness to what's happening right now, or more kindness? And then cultivating, really, what is nourishing or supportive? What can I turn towards in this moment? And you can practice this without anyone even knowing, with your eyes open, wherever you are. And you can also practice all three together. And in my own practice, I found that cultivating what's nourishing is a really powerful support in turning towards what's really difficult. So I like to think about it as, before I open that door to the difficult visitor who's out there, how do I want to prepare my home? Like, what supports do I need around me? How do I really nourish grounding and compassion within myself before I open that door? Or the analogy of the river. If the river is getting really wavy and it's a rocky chapter, I'm going to pull my boat over, I'm going to get on shore, and then I'm going to button down the hatches. I'm going to get someone else on the boat with me, reaching out for connection. And then I'm going to get back in the river, and I'll be able to respond differently with this kind of support, this kind of cultivation. So a lot of talking from me. Let's have an experience. As always, this practice will be about 15-20 minutes, and I'll guide us through these three ways of working with the mind, and you can see what that's like for you. Of course, the mind is going to wander off to other things, just what it does. And as always, we can invite it back. So if there's anything you need to do to get more comfortable, and when the time feels right, closing the eyes. And knowing you can always keep the eyes open with a soft gaze if that feels more comfortable. And inviting ourselves here to this present moment. And noticing with a real innocent curiosity, what is happening? What is arising? And so I invite you to notice the space around you. The energy of the room where you're sitting. Noticing sounds. Noticing temperature. Noticing smells. Moving this curiosity now into the body. You might notice that the body's breathing. No need to change the breath at all. Just noticing with curiosity, where is it moving? And staying aware of the breath, noticing this body. You might notice the sensations on the left side of the chest as breathing. Notice sensations on the right side of the chest. Noticing the sensations throughout the whole chest, the left and the right together. Noticing the sensations on the front side of the torso from the collarbones all the way down to the hips. Noticing sensation on the back side of the torso from the shoulders all the way down to the top of the hips. And staying aware of breathing, noticing the whole torso from the shoulders all the way to the hips. Noticing now the space around the eyes. Noticing the jaw. Noticing the cheeks. Noticing now the whole face filled with a curious awareness. Sensations changing, coming and going. And staying aware of breathing. Noticing the lower half of the body. From the hips, down through the legs, knees and calves, ankles and feet, all the way to the toes, noticing the whole lower half of the body. Noticing now the body as a whole. And with curiosity, experiencing the life of the body just like this. And aware of the body breathing, the continuity of breathing. And from this place of being, also including any feelings that are present. Just noticing as if watching clouds pass through a sky, feeling tone of this inner life, always changing. And sensing this space of awareness, just like a sky, resting back in awareness as the clouds, the feeling tones pass through. Joy or sorrow, weariness, hope, love or jealousy, numbness, excitement. Resting back as the sky, allowing this inner experience to flow through just like clouds. And a quality of wonder, of wow, this is what's here, this is what's moving through. including thinking. So noticing thoughts that are present. The mind, being as it is, wanders wherever it likes, whenever it likes, and just noticing thought forms that are present. Curiosity, all the thoughts about the future, thoughts about the past, self-referential thoughts. Just noticing, resting back as the sky, as thoughts pass through. And staying aware of breathing. And staying aware of breathing and this continuity of being, this space of awareness. Noticing the relationship to what's happening right now. Perhaps there are places that feel sticky. There's resistance. Places where there's openness, acceptance. How am I relating to what's arising in this moment? And if there is anything that is needing kindness, anything in the body that is needing kindness, any emotional experience that is needing kindness, or any thoughts in the mind, inclining towards what is arising, the care and tenderness we would extend to a good friend, to a small child. Not to fix or change or push away what is here. Simply to respond to what's here with the tenderness and care that it deserves. And if feeling kindness in the body is helpful, you could place a hand over the heart or the belly, or even just holding on to a wrist. Inclining towards this human life that is a part of nature. Tenderness and care. And perhaps noticing the felt sensation of the exhalation. Letting whatever is here float through awareness or flow. Not holding on to anything. Sometimes the wisdom of an exhalation, that deep releasing, allowing what's here to be here. And now turning towards or cultivating what is supportive, what is nourishing, grounding. You could imagine just turning towards the warm sun, inclining the mind and heart towards what really, really matters. You might call to mind the people, structures, philosophies, or places that support you. And feeling this support in your body, really absorbing, fully receiving, supported. Allowing the support to be deeply felt. Or perhaps connecting the sincerity of the intention that brings us together to care for this human life, the one right here. And I'll repeat some loving kindness phrases and can allow them to land just sort of like seeds being planted. May I be happy of heart. And sensing that is what that feels like. That unconditional happiness. Happiness for no reason. Joy of being. Yeah, I know this. May I be healthy and strong. What is that like in the body? May I be healthy and strong. May I be peaceful. May I be peaceful, knowing that human life is one of constant change. Amidst all the change, may I know peace, a peace within. May I be happy of heart. May I be healthy and strong. May I be peaceful. Or perhaps there are other values or other phrases that you might need to hear right now. Connecting with what it is or what it means to accept, to love unconditionally, to forgive, inclining the mind and heart towards what you care about, what really matters. And perhaps gratitude is what resonates most right now. There's no right or wrong. Calling to mind the gifts in your life, big and small. And sensing the web of benevolence to which you belong. The ways we are cared for by nature, by others. our strengths. Ah, thank you. And again, we turn towards what is wholesome and supportive, not to run away from anything that is present, and rather to give ourselves the inner resources to be able to respond, grounding, resilience. And so in these last moments of our practice, bringing the attention back to the breath. Experiencing the sensations of inhaling, sensations of exhaling. Knowing that this breath is always here, just waiting. Bring this home to the present. We can notice what's arising, can relate to what is arising with friendliness, spaciousness. And we can turn towards what is supportive, what is nourishing. And so I invite you to take your time. You can linger here as long as you like. And whenever the time feels right, you open the eyes and come on back. You can do so. And so if it feels helpful to either just silently reflect on what you noticed or to pick up a pen and paper and jot down either what you, no pun intended, noticed in the noticing and in the relating and in the cultivating, uh, what arose for you in the practice. And also you could think about in daily life, when might it be helpful to pause and practice just noticing in the flow of daily life, or recognizing those moments or those people in your life or those situations that cause the reactivity. Where might it be helpful to really practice relating with kindness? And then when might it be helpful to cultivate, to turn towards